Hello, my Resin monkeys. Let's have a story time. Back in the late 80s, anime was blooming, but fans didn't have many options for figures from their favorite animes. So what many began to do was make custom figures of their beloved characters. And so the model kits started to take flight. Many of you might wonder why they're called garage kits, and it's pretty simple really. Almost everyone that did their amateur sculptures and castings did so in their garages, hence the name. Now fast forward to the early 90s. More and more amateur figures were being made by fans in Japan. And there were very strict copyright regulations and laws. So the industry decided to intervene in how these figures were being sold. Most of these figures were from licensed characters, and the companies were ready to sue anyone making them even if they weren't for profit. But instead of that, they turned it around and the one-day license was born. This license is provided to those amateur sculptors for specific events created to be able to sell these figures as long as they pay royalties to the original publisher or creator, meaning that they need to apply for a special license that gives them the ability to sell a figure of a licensed character for that day and that day only. If they sell before or after the stated date, there could actually be a chance of getting into legal complications. Once companies like Kotobukiya, Kyoto, Volks, and others saw the potential for these figures, they also hopped aboard the hype train to try and get a slice of the pie. But the difference is that they pay for a different license that lets them sell kits at any point in time, unlike the independent sculptor. That's why you see a ton of kits from a lot of characters from these companies now, even though they were made a long time ago. And that, my PVC collector friends, is how you came about to getting all these nice figures that come out every year. If it weren't for the GK hobby, companies would have never looked at this trend to make mass-produced figures, as not everybody wanted or had the skills to paint a kit but still wanted to have a pre-painted figure of their favorite character. When you talk about GKs, you cannot not talk about recasts. A recast is a copy of the original figure, usually reproduced in Thailand and China. You will hear a lot of people say that recasts are bad, but there's a much deeper issue with recasts than most people don't want to see or are too ignorant to understand. Since these kits are only sold at events, it's plain and simple. If you're not there in person, you have 0% chance of getting the kit you want. Your chances might get higher if you try to look on Yahoo Japan auctions after the event. But surprise! The kit that was originally sold for 12,000 yen is now being sold at a whopping 40,000. How is this even possible, you ask, while you scream inside your head and cry in the corner? Well, my dear Resin Monkey, it so happens to be that you have stumbled upon a scalper's listing. And now you're asking yourself, well, what's a scalper? A scalper is a person who goes to these events and buys merchandise like these kits, not for personal use, but with the sole intent of reselling them later for a much higher price. In other words, a flipper. Events are full of them and many are extremely greedy. Let me put just an example of a recent extreme case. This Sailor Moon Masquerade dancing pair was originally sold last year at Wonder Festival for 18,000 yen at the event, but a scalper decided to sell the kit at 100,000 yen. That is almost $1,000. Two more listings were sold at almost the same price, so that's 3 people that made close to $3,000 thanks to the work of someone else. That sounds familiar. So this is totally acceptable in Japan, whereas the rest of the world considers flippers to be really bad for the market. In other words, a lot of people wanting to get these figures outside Japan not only have to pay 2, 3, 4 times the original price, but also have to pay proxy fees because Yahoo Japan Auctions doesn't sell overseas. Many of them pay an arm and a leg, maybe their soul sometimes, to get that coveted kit. So what happens when you don't have $1,000 but you still really want that figure? You look for an alternative. Hello, recasts. A lot of people will argue that purchasing a recast is stealing from the original creator. Many of these people will also look down on you and even attack you personally. The place that left me with a very bad taste in my mouth was my figure collection. A lot of people told me that I was killing the industry, that I had no shame, and many of them passed judgment on me and said that I was just a bad person for not caring if I worked with a recast or an original. Even though I never once promoted recast because it goes against their own rules. People just seem to visit my page and then go back to my MFC profile to call me all sorts of things, even flagging my photos for no valid reason. So I decided never to participate in this community ever again. And to be honest, I was one of the few people there that really wanted to help everyone on the GK subject. However, the modeling community that really takes the first place in douchebaggery are the American GK builders, those that paint Western kits to be more specific. Americans are extremely aggressive with the topic of recasts. I once made the mistake of joining an online forum for model building because I wanted to meet new people. I ended up being harassed, talked down on, called many things, and I was told that my work was shit because my kit was a recast. Needless to say, I removed myself immediately and never once returned. Because, everybody loves being treated like that. Am I right? So speaking of Americans and recasts and how they argue that they steal from the original creator, let's talk about them for a bit to see if there's any fairness in their arguments. Americans will make kits of licensed characters all the time. However, unlike the Japanese market, these people don't pay a single dollar to get a license to sell their kits. Many of them are named differently from the original character just to say it's not the same because they're selling Vamp Girl and not Vampirella. They're selling The Proud Prince and not Vegeta. Because heck, I'm pretty sure Beatty or Bitey or whatever it is that you pronounce his name didn't really actually pay any royalties to Akira Toriyama to reproduce his work. How about some new busts that are coming out from popular series? Like this one of Tyrion Hand the Imp? Oh hey, it's Lagertha from the hit TV shows Vikings on the History Channel. No, it's not Lagertha, but Shield Maiden? These busts were made by Nuts Planet, a company apparently located in South Korea. So none of these kits are officially licensed by the creators. I don't see their products on HBO's official website. In fact, there are some official licensed figures you can buy there. Okay, given they're not great, but they're still official. I don't even want to think about what the History Channel might say if they saw these kits being sold in the US, which they are, and at many hobby shops. However, some figures will be officially licensed, and you will know that because all of them have a certificate of authenticity in the box, like this Stargate kit. FYI, one of my favorite sci-fi movies. So the argument that many give in regards to ripping off the creator starts to render moot when you realize that all of these modelers support those that make kits out of licensed characters and don't pay any royalties to the company that produced them. Because I'm sure Nuts Planet didn't pay George R.R. Martin to create and sell almost all of his characters, so you could call that a double standard. There are a lot of gray areas that they take advantage of to sell licensed characters under different names to avoid the lawyers. However, the only time their argument is valid is when someone makes an original character and then gets recasted by a third party. Unlike in Japan, where the Japanese don't sell out of a specific date and also not overseas. Americans can reproduce how many they want and sell to whomever they want. Now, back to the Japanese kit topic. You really can't expect everybody to be at the event to buy the kit in person. There are a lot of things that you don't know until you actually go to Japan to these events and meet the sculptors. Being a foreigner, you get a lot of stares and looks. I know because one of the sculptors that I bought a kit from actually tweeted about me. Japanese people don't speak English, and I thought the reason for them not selling overseas was because of the language barrier or that they didn't know that they had fans outside Japan. It turns out they just simply don't want to bother selling to anybody else that doesn't speak their own language. And if you do, they don't have any interest in selling to you either. This is what I experienced at last year's Wonder Festival. I wanted to go and talk to all these sculptors and explain that people outside Japan wanted to buy their works and, maybe try and reduce the amount of recast purchase if originals were more accessible. But they just disregarded me and said, no, sorry, thank you for your patronage. It was very demoralizing to be turned down like that. And also because, they follow the law religiously and they only sell on the dates they're given. So a combination of these two things is what I realized kept recasts alive. However, it is noteworthy to mention that some sculptors do sell outside Japan and will gladly accept payments via PayPal and ship the kits to you directly instead of buying secondhand or via proxy. They're very small in numbers, but they're usually sculptors that make original characters. But some will get somehow special permission to sell if it's a licensed characters like these kits from Token Rambu, which ironically is the Japanese video game with no international release. Yet it's hugely popular outside Japan. The bottom line is, recasts are not destroying anything. If you really want to blame someone for this problem, blame the scalpers. Selling kits at super high prices, making them inaccessible to the rest of us village people that don't have thousands of dollars to burn. There's also the argument that if you buy recasts, you're not supporting the sculptor. Well, yes and no. unless you purchase directly from them. The money goes to someone else selling it as second-hand. Call it mandarake or call it rakuten. And you're not supporting anyone except the pockets of these stores that give 0 yen back to the original sculptor. Recasts have existed for many years, yet new kits are being produced all the time. What I saw when I was in Japan is that as long as the sculptor sells its copies of the day, he's gotten his earnings and is satisfied. Whatever happens to the kits after that is out of their control. Sure, some won't like it that their kits are being recasted or sold for thousands more, like what happened with that Usagi and Tuxedo Mask dancing pair, but they don't do anything either. Yes, there are some problems because of recasts, but nothing is being made to alleviate it because of restrictions in licensing and because most of the times the sculptors make such limited amount of copies that it's impossible to get them before they sell out within the first 15 minutes of an event, on top of language barriers and scalpers. So what can we learn from this issue? A lot of things, really. If you're against recasts, then just buy originals. You don't need to go and attack someone for not thinking the same way as you. You want to support the artist? Then hop on a plane, go to Japan, buy your event ticket, and rush to the sculptor's booth to give him or her your hard-earned money, because you know it will go to a good place. Buying secondhand is not supporting the original artist. You're just fattening up the wallets of whomever is reselling it. But it's still an option if you want to buy the original. You just need to be really conscious that you're not supporting the artist directly. Without recasts, many of us may not even have had the chance to start this hobby. And I'm just talking about Japanese kids. Western kids are in a totally different turf and situation, which I'm not going to continue touching. It's your choice if you want to buy a recast or an original. Heck, many recasts are from very old kits made by companies that don't even exist now. So technically, nobody is losing anything. The point is that you're in this hobby to have fun, not to be judged by others for what you buy or judge someone else. But whenever you do have the chance to purchase from the original artist directly, please take it. It does feel really nice to shake their hand, meet them face to face, receive a personal email from them, and give them your hard-earned cash. Many of them will be amazed that a foreigner likes their work. Others will be very grateful that you visited their country if you went to this event, and they will actually tell you that. Others will just tell you to go away because they don't want to sell to foreigners, and it's no joke. There are still people that think that way. All in all, GK building is for fun. Do whatever feels right for you, and just keep on painting. So until next time, my Resin Monkeys, thanks for watching. Oh hey! Just a quick announcement. I'm finally on Patreon. Patreon is an ongoing crowdfunding page, similar to Kickstarter or Indiegogo. The difference is that you support your favorite creator or project for as long as you want. On top of helping with your contribution, all Patreons will get really nice perks and rewards for being a supporter. From access to exclusive content on my Patreon feed to live one-on-one chats with yours truly. Detailed rewards for each tier can be found on my Patreon page, which all the information and links are located in the description box below. So I hope you can join me there.